Not Quite
Darkness
is a podcast that contains spoilers, opinions, and general. Listener discretion is advised.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in with us for another awesome episode of Not Quite Darkness. My name is Keith Brooks, and I'm here as always with Mr. Chad Dowdy. Chad, you dressed for the part. You look like you're dressed to kill yourself, sir. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I am dressed to kill. I thought about dressing as Norman Bates because I felt like we were watching Psycho, but we're watching Dress to Kill. So I'm dressed to kill.
Yeah, so that's what we're doing today on the show. We obviously don't have Rob Prago with us because just knowing him is a horror enough. But we're watching all of the movies from the In Search of Darkness film series, and this is our third. I think we're still in 1980. So we've done The Changeling, Friday the 13th, and now we're going to be talking about the Michael Caine starring, Brian De Palma directed Dress to Kill. Which is problematic. So, Chad, tell me about it.
Yeah, so let's get started with a couple things. One, Keith, let's try not to get canceled after this podcast. That's kind of important.
Yeah.
Don't want to get canceled. We recognize this movie's problematic. Let's keep that in mind.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if you want to have a nice drinking game with this, anytime Keith has already done the Michael Caine accent, take a drink. Because it's going to happen probably frequently in this podcast.
You're supposed to blow the bloody doors off. Yep, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so Dress to Kill, directed by Brian De Palma, who is admittedly an Alfred Hitchcock fan. I think that's not even a strong enough word.
And a pervert. We can already say those two things.
So he kind of follows in Alfred Hitchcock's footsteps in that regard too, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he increases it ever so slightly. Hitchcock was at least, I won't show vagina. And then Brian De Palma's like, all the vagina, all the time.
Yeah, it's funny because so the movie starts, right? The music, it's already, wait, I'm going to start from the beginning. I've never seen this before. This is the first time watch for me. So I'm going to get into it. Keith, you might have to help a little bit because like some of these other movies where I've seen like 1,000 times, I've only watched this once. So, but the
I've
movie
seen
starts,
it like
right?
4 times, which makes me problematic. So go ahead.
I feel like you've watched maybe the intro, maybe like 18,000 times.
Yeah, just in 10-second increments. All right, go ahead.
The music reminds me of Carrie already off the bat. And not only does the music remind me of Carrie, we're in a bathroom, just like Carrie. Naked woman, just like Carrie. So it's Carrie at the beginning, but again, we get full frontal nudity, and it's not just her, taking a shower. It is softcore porn.
Absolutely. It starts off her taking a shower as she's admiring a man who I think is supposed to be her husband.
It's her husband. Yep.
Yeah. And then as he's shaving, she's like, ooh la la, that turns me on. And then goes into softcore porn and then goes into hardcore porn pretty abruptly.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, did some people walk out of this? Because it just seems like this was a pretty hardcore beginning to this film. And it's surprising to me, as I told you, this is my first time watch, that I did not watch this, growing up. This is a movie. Like, I feel like everybody like, you got to check out this movie. You got to watch the beginning of this movie.
There's boobs everywhere.
It's amazing. So it's kind of surprising that I have not seen this before. But yeah, so after her shower, which is, again, like you said, hardcore porn, we cut to a sex scene with her and her husband that is the softest of soft. She's wearing clothes for this sex scene.
Yeah.
After she's completely naked in the shower, the sex scene is she's got her shirt on, she's got her top on. You don't see anything.
But I think that's the point of it, like, because the shower scene, if you're unfamiliar with the movie, she's having a fantasy about her husband, and in this fantasy, it's very erotic. She starts touching herself, and then all of a sudden, her husband is behind her and picks her up by her vagina, which is a weird thing, and then starts forcing himself on her. And then we realize that was a dream, and she's actually waking up to her husband having sex with her while she was asleep, which is a fucked up thing. But that's how this movie starts. Yay.
Yeah, unbelievable. And the lead actress here, she's played by Angie Dickinson. So again, it's clear that she's like, I don't know if she ever was in love with her husband, but she's over it with her husband. Like, it's not exciting. Her life is not exciting, right now. And then we meet, she goes and has a conversation with her son, who is the science guy. Keep that in mind. That's going to be important for later. He likes science, and it's pretty clear that he likes science.
He's building his own Jarvis. Yeah,
exactly. And this guy, he's from Christine. He's also from Back to School. So, you've seen him in some stuff. Now, the father, her husband is not his father, though. It's a stepfather. But so I have a question for you, Keith. How old do you think this son is? Is he playing a 17-year-old? If you said 17, okay. If you said he's 30, I'm like, yeah, he's a 30-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, he says that he has a French exam. So and it, like, there's that weird nature he gets with Nancy Allen from RoboCop later, where it's like, is he gonna fuck her or is he not gonna fuck her?
Right.
And so I'm thinking he's like supposed to be 16, but he's 45 years old in reality. Like, that's my thought.
Yeah, exactly. He looks a lot older than I feel like what he's playing.
Yeah.
So then now Angie Dickinson goes to see her therapist, who is Michael Caine. He's her therapist.
A terrible therapist.
A lot of,
go ahead.
well, among other things. So we get a lot of exposition with this. And unlike a lot of films where exposition just feels like tacked on, I mean, it's hard, to wedge it into a film where it feels natural. At least when you're talking to your therapist, it's kind of okay, because you're actually telling your therapist your thoughts, your feelings, what's going on in your life. So it actually works for me talking to a therapist in a film to a degree, to get a lot of that backstory out on the table. That doesn't sound like, oh, hey, dad, you've been my dad for 30 years. You don't get any of that stupid stuff.
Yeah.
So I like that, with the therapist. And this is also where she starts flirting with him, and she's just down to fuck him. I mean, that's what it is. She wants to have sex with him. She's not, again, as I said, her life is not exciting. She just wants to cheat on her husband.
Yeah.
So she's basically throwing herself at Michael Caine. And I actually love his responses to her questions. Just like how she's like, do you find me attractive? Yes.
Yes.
Do you want to have sex with me? Yes. Will you have sex with me? No. Like, I'm married. It's like, it's such a, like, it's what people would really think. Like, I feel like in those things. And you're just saying, I just love his responses to her hitting on him so much.
And it's great because
awesome.
we get to see it happen again as well. And it still maintains that response level. Like, it's great.
Yes. And, in this one, the two of them, there's not really an age difference. Like we talked about in some, the other films, there's crazy age differences, but that doesn't mean, like you said, Nancy Allen later and the son. So that's maybe where the age difference, will come into play.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is with horror movies of the 80s.
Especially the 80s. Yeah, God.
Yeah, that's what it is. So again, he does be a therapist to her, but he rebuffs her advances and she leaves. She goes to an art gallery, and there's a guy that shows up there. She clearly doesn't know this guy.
And this guy, let me just say, is giving a blowjob to an ink pen the vast majority of the scene that he's in. Like, he is sucking on this ink pen so hard. Like, I thought it had candy in it. You know what I mean? Like, it was.
Yes.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So, and much like Michael Caine, she wants this guy. And she is not like out saying anything to him, but she's just, giving that vibe or whatever. And so what do you think? She takes off her glove to show her wedding ring. So do you feel like what she's trying to say is, hey, this is going to be no strings attached because I'm married? Or is it more like, am I more desirable because you can't have me? How do you feel about that?
I kind of actually thought it was she takes off the glove because she's getting all hot and bothered, because she even does that leg cross bounce thing to imply that she's horny, whatever. And I think she takes off the glove just because she's fiddling with something, and then realizes she showed the ring and is like, oh, fuck, I drove him away. But I feel like that's always the way I've assumed it to be. But this section of the movie is my favorite part. This like chase that happens through the...
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
Because I feel this is like, there's so many elements of this movie that are Psycho, but this is like him going, I can do exactly what Hitchcock did. I'm going to give you the score, but it's also going to be this like game of cat and mouse. Like, I love the long following shots that we're going with her through this museum, and he's just in a corner and we're barely seeing him. You know what I mean? And she doesn't even see he's behind her. Like, I love that game of cat and mouse because it feels so classy as opposed to what we get to later. You know what I mean?
I mean, I like it to a degree. I feel like it goes on too long, and maybe it wouldn't feel that way if the area is bigger. Because I feel like it's like a circle several times. She walks by the same thing several times. So I'm like, oh my, when are we going to get this over with?
Yeah.
Plus, at this point so far, there's been no horror in this horror movie, which again, Psycho, there's no horror until there's just flat out horror, So again, definitely this is his Psycho, 100%. Even down to, the kid we're talking about here, her son, that a lot of that stuff is all about Psycho. So, again, like you said, your favorite chase scene here, which is more like, let's walk real slowly in a circle.
But it's also like
minutes.
she's dressed like a Hitchcockian girl. Like, the music 100%. Feels like it's Psycho. The artsy, environment of the museum. It sucks that all these white dudes in this movie look exactly the same, except for Michael Caine. Because I think this dude looks just like her fucking husband. Like, to me,
I thought it was at first, and they were playing like some role play thing.
Yeah. So, but I get it's not her husband. Spoiler alert.
Right.
Anyway, so then go ahead.
So she can't find him now. He gets away from her. So she leaves all dejected. The second time today, she's tried to cheat on her husband. It didn't work out. But then she sees him in the cab outside the art gallery holding her glove. So she goes up to him to basically say, thanks for getting my glove. And he just grabs her and they just start making out right there in the cab.
Yeah.
And if she wanted to cheat on her husband, mission accomplished, because it is quickly.
We're not going to mince words here because he minces something else. He performs oral sex on her in the back of this cab. And so I think, like, to me, this is the most Brian De Palma moment, because we go from elegant Hitchcockian chase scene to eating pussy in the back of a taxi cab in New York City. Like, that's what this movie is.
But I also feel like if Hitchcock was making movies in the 80s, he would do something like this too.
Yeah, he was the guy that introduced
different era.
Yeah, he introduced the toilet flush. Yeah, so like
exactly.
So
toilet flush, eating pussy, just
one
step removed from each other, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the cabbie, he's just like, yeah, my lucky day right here. You got to pay for this ride, So they go to his apartment, they have sex, and is he asleep when she gets up, or is he gone from the apartment? I can't remember, but
he's asleep.
She gets up and starts wandering around.
Yeah.
So she gets up, she starts wandering around, and she wants to leave him a note, basically to say, had a great time or whatever. So she's leaving him the note, and she notices some medical documents in the drawer, and she looks at it, and it says it's about this guy, and he has a venereal disease. So she immediately goes from like cloud nine to, worst decision I've ever made in my entire life.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is pretty cool. I like where this movie is going. Again, keep in mind, first time watch.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh wow, how's she going to handle this? Like she's probably got an STD now, and she just cheated on her husband. So she freaks out. She leaves. She is in still in the hotel, or where the guy lives, apartment complex, I guess. But she's being watched by someone as she is getting on the elevator. Then she takes the elevator. It opens up on one of the floors, and a female, in quotes, cuts her. Just starts cutting her with a razor. And while this is going on, we're intercut to now we're meeting Nancy Allen. She's been in several De Palma films. She
RoboCop
was
as
his
well.
wife at the time.
Yeah.
RoboCop.
Oh, really?
I didn't know for. Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
She was his wife at the time, and so. But yeah, I love her in RoboCop. First of all,
Me too.
She's awesome. So we see her. She's talking to a guy at the elevator. The elevator opens up, and there's Angie Dickinson, all cut up, laying on the floor, bloody, and the dude just dips. He just runs out full speed. I laughed out loud because I was like, "What is happening?"
He finds a fire escape like in the background, and it's just gone, gone.
He doesn't say, "Let's get out of here," or "Oh shit." He's just like, "Forget, I am no part of this." He is gone. I thought it was the craziest thing. And then Nancy Allen she freaks out. She doesn't know what to do. She's trying to help the lady because she's still alive. Maybe she's moving. And then she sees in the reflection the killer hiding in the elevator. And she, for some crazy reason, Nancy Allen picks up the murder weapon that's on the ground and runs out of the apartment building. And the killer gets away too, of course.
Yeah.
And so now, and someone also saw her, another, like a random,
maid.
like a maid. Yeah, a maid saw her. So now it looks like, to the maid at least, she's the killer. But in my mind, I'm like, well, the dude that ran away, he can easily vouch for this. So it's not that crazy. I wasn't even thinking like that they think that she's the killer or anything like that.
Yeah.
But so now we find out that actually Angie Dickinson is dead. So again, Psycho. We've been following Angie Dickinson for 30 minutes.
36 minutes before she dies.
Yes.
And it's ridiculous. Like, and it feels like it's such because in Psycho as well, Janet Leigh is doing something naughty. She's doing something she's not supposed to. And that's what leads her into her demise. And the same thing's applicable here. I also think there's like this weird thing about going back that happens a lot. If she wouldn't have, when she's looking for the dude in the museum, if she wouldn't have made her way back to the chair, she wouldn't have forgotten her glove, and this wouldn't have happened. When she's escaping the apartment complex or leaving, she forgets her wedding ring. So she makes it all the way to the bottom floor and then has to go all the way back up to get her wedding ring, and that's when she gets killed. So it's like she's almost free, and then because she goes back, that's what fucks her up every time. I don't know what the statement is in that, but it happens a lot in this movie. Sorry.
Right. Yep. So, Nancy Allen calls the cops, and then we cut to Michael Caine. He's getting a voicemail.
Michael Caine. Yep.
Take a drink, guys. I love this voicemail. It's awesome. And basically it's a guy saying, hey, it's your former patient. He says he's got a girl inside of him, which would explain why the killer that we saw looked a little weird. It didn't look necessarily like a full woman. Again, it looked fake a little bit, made up a lot, something like that. So, now we got it. It's a former patient. There's a girl inside of him, and you won't help me. You refuse to help me. So I stole your razor. So now Michael Caine might be a suspect because, it's his razor. And so again, first time watch, but I did know the twist just because being a horror fan, I feel like I've probably seen 5 or 6 documentaries where they talk about this movie.
Plus, I
Like,
think it's hard to see that shot of the killer and not be like, "Oh, that looks exactly like the person it is."
Yeah.
You know?
exactly. So I really wish I didn't know the twist at that point, just because again that voicemail is great. And
Yeah.
and again, I know the twist. We're gonna spoil it right now. The twist is Michael Caine is the
Mhm,
killer
mhm.
dressed as a woman.
Yep.
But that voicemail was not Michael Caine's voice. Like I
Mm.
was, thinking like, you've seen this in movies where if someone's schizophrenic, they might leave themselves a voicemail or something like that. But I was like, that's not Michael Caine's voice, like
No.
for sure. So I'm thinking like, I'm wondering if they're like just playing with us. Like, is it really Michael Caine leaving a message and they're just using a different actor's voice, at this point? Because I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But again, like I said, I loved that voicemail. Loved everything about it. So now we're at the police station with Dennis Franz, about 30 pounds lighter than he usually is. And he's questioning Michael Caine, because again, she was his patient. I'm not sure how they link her to Michael Caine necessarily. I don't remember that specifically, but they are questioning him at least. It didn't seem like they were questioning him in a manner as you're a suspect, but more like, hey, we want to get inside her head. She was cheating on her husband, clearly. What do you know about it? What do you know about this guy she was sleeping with?
And again, I think Michael Caine does some awesome work here in this scene because the officer NYPD Blue is like pressing him about stuff, and Michael Caine's like, "Are you married? Do you have children? When was the last time you had intercourse? What the fuck does it mean to you?" It's exactly what I would say to you, good sir. And it's so like good, just so good in his delivery of these lines.
Yeah, he's amazing in this film.
Yeah,
Like
he
again,
is.
the lines is awesome. The writing for him is awesome. He's great.
Problematic movie. He's
Yes.
great. Yes.
He is great. And also Angie Dickinson's son and his stepdad are there at the police station, and Angie Dickinson's son listens in on this conversation because of science.
Yep.
He
He's
has-
apparently a Black Widow and in training.
yes. So he listens to the conversation. He realizes kind of what's going on. His mom was sleeping around, and Nancy Allen saw the whole thing, and turns out Nancy Allen is a prostitute. And now it makes sense why that dude just ran off. It actually made sense.
Yeah.
Like, dude was sleeping with a prostitute. Here's a murder. I'm gone. You're never going to see me again. Perfect. And that also really makes her a suspect in the eyes of the police, at least, because she can't give up her source because she's a prostitute. The maid saw her with a murder weapon. So again, she's not arrested, but NYPD Blue's bleeding on her a little bit,
Yeah.
in regards to this. So, but when the cop was talking to Michael Caine, I thought, really for no reason, it didn't really go anywhere. He jumped to her being suicidal like so quickly. She was cheating on her husband and then got killed in an elevator.
Yeah.
And he's just like, was she suicidal? Which I feel like she was doing all this dangerous stuff because she wanted to die.
Well, I think that's an interesting part of the movie is that it is a product of its time. And I think that's still at, 1980 and to a degree now, even the reflection of what the view of, if you're seeing a psychiatrist or a therapist, you must be seeing them for this reason. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. 1980. Okay. I am looking at this again for the first time through 2023 eyes.
Yeah.
Where, again, seeing a therapist is completely normal.
Absolutely.
It's mental health, everybody has mental health, so gotcha. So I could understand maybe from 1980 that's the only reason you would see a psychiatrist, because you're a crazy person.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I still think there's those pockets of people who unfortunately still believe that nowadays. But
Yes, of course.
but I think I think we'll see a lot of ideas like that sort of are a product of 1980s thinking as we progress through this problematic film. Michael Caine. So,
yeah, again, this film is problematic.
yeah.
So, now we're done with the interrogation police. It cuts to the son. He is timing people coming out of Michael Caine's office. He's got a stopwatch and he's timing them. And I'm like, what is he even doing? This made, granted, it makes sense later, but it really doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like why is he timing these people? It's just ridiculous. But he's timing them because he's just trying to see how long it takes everyone to get from the door to the gate, so that when he sets up a camera and starts taking pictures of everyone leaving there, that, he'll make sure he gets a picture of their face. Because I think, again, I can't remember. Did they think maybe NYPD Blue thought maybe that the killer went to Michael Caine as well? Is that the gist of it?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So also Michael Caine gets another voicemail. And this one is where the killer is telling Michael Caine that he's going to kill Nancy Allen because Nancy Allen saw him. So it's a little weird with, again, with this voice on the voicemail, as far as this goes. But
and again,
so
Michael Caine
now,
also hasn't told the police about either one of these voicemails.
That's correct. He, everything to him is not proprietary, confidentiality. Yes. So, he hasn't told them anything. They don't have a warrant. He's not telling them anything. But after the voicemail, this is interesting because they show a clip and Michael Caine's watching Phil Donahue, and I'm assuming that this was a real Phil Donahue show.
Yeah.
From that time frame. It wasn't like Phil Donahue made a cameo in this film. I believe it's probably really a clip from his show where they had, a transsexual on the show talking about their experience. And while this film is problematic, I do appreciate the fact that it takes a moment to show this.
Me too.
Because that person is not crazy.
No.
And they are talking about also the other people that they know that dress as women as well. And they lead normal lives. They're not crazy people. They're in, I think maybe they were in the military. They had these other jobs. I can't remember. So even though the film is problematic, I do like it. I'm surprised this was actually in the film, quite frankly.
Me too. And I think it's the one bit of saving grace for this argument. I think a lot of the argument about it being problematic is the fact that it's representation of the trans community, right? And at this point too, it's, are they representing transvesticism or transsexuality? It's kind of a toss-up to a degree, but your main character is sort of played in a disturbing way, the one that is the transvestite or transsexual, depending on how you want to classify it. But this other representation is treated, almost respectfully, even to the extent where, the person being interviewed by Donahue is like, I'm heterosexual. I've always been heterosexual. This doesn't affect that. This is just how I view myself and all that. It's a great scene. Also, I like the fact that they incorporate, a common trope of the time was the split screen, dual screen views. A lot of shitty horror movies of the time had those. And I think De Palma incorporates it better than a lot of other filmmakers do. And it sort of fits into the nature of the story he's trying to tell as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I also like the fact that it is Michael Caine that's watching this because, again, he's a therapist, but this person is speaking to him and his experiences as well. You maybe don't realize that, if you don't know the twist or where the movie's going, but to me, it's a great scene.
Absolutely. And also during this time, Michael Caine is trying to get in touch with Bobby, who is the woman,
leaving the voicemails.
Yeah. Leaving the voicemails about stalking and killing Nancy Allen.
Because Bobby also said he or she has a new therapist.
Yeah.
Because you won't help me. I have a new therapist. And I believe they even say who the therapist is. So,
I think so.
That's going to come into play, later. So Nancy Allen, she's back on the job. She goes to see another John. And the guy who opens the door is the dude from Christmas Evil. Have you ever seen Christmas Evil, Keith? So you're not going to appreciate it. But when I saw him, I was super pumped. And 2 seconds he's in the film. He's at the door and he lets her in.
That's awesome.
Christmas Evil, it might come up in this, in the In Search of Darkness. I don't remember, but it's you're not gonna like this. It's like the Joker, except for the guy is Santa Claus. He's not real Santa Claus, but he dresses up as Santa Claus. He kills people, but he goes crazy slowly. I mean, again, people say the Joker's like Taxi Driver and King of Comedy. Watch Christmas Evil through that Joker lens. That's what it is.
Okay.
But anyway, I was super pumped when I saw him. But again, he's not even in the film.
Yeah.
But after she gets done with her business, she leaves and she's being watched. And it's a woman. And so
a blonde woman.
Nancy Allen sees her and freaks out because she's like, this is the person, from the elevator. And again, we've already heard the voicemail that, I'm going after Nancy Allen next. So, she's terrified. So she gets in a cab and she's being followed by this woman. Then, just like you said, we get a split screen of Michael Caine leaving a voicemail or calling or something about how he's going to be in his office all night or something. And now, again, knowing the twist, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, they're tricking me with these cameras, and I don't like this. I don't like that they're acting like Michael Caine is in his office at this moment when clearly Michael Caine, dressed as the woman, is following her. That is a cheat. You are cheating me out of this movie, and I'm really angry at this point. Again, a normal person watching this movie wouldn't be angry, but I am, because of what I perceive to be happening in this moment.
Yeah.
So again, a little bit of a chase. This is to me certainly more of a chase than your chase scene earlier, where we walk around the art gallery for 45 minutes in a circle. Oh my gosh. So Nancy Allen eventually gets out of the car. She gets on the subway, and before she gets on the subway, there's like a gang or some guys that basically want to rape her. I mean,
next problematic scene. Yeah. And it happens also to be the only African-American characters in all of New York City, according to this movie. And
was the cop African-American?
He was. So okay. So then maybe soften in that. Okay.
I get a little bit. So she gets away from them and jumps on the subway train. There's a cop there. And she's telling the cop what's going on. And I can't remember, does the cop just doesn't believe her, or he's like, he looks and he's like, I don't see anybody.
Yeah, just sees like an old lady in a babushka, and then he gets off on the next stop, and then
so he gets off on the next stop, but 100% after multiple things, I was almost raped, and I know that the killer is following me. I'm 100% going with that cop. I'm not letting the cop get off the subway and riding to my next stop.
Yeah.
I'm going with that cop. I don't care where he's going. You going home? I'm going to your home. We're going to the station. Let's go. Because I have two different sets of bad guys trying to kill me or do harm to me right now. So I didn't like that part. Again, where's she going? I don't know, but she just hangs out. And the guys show up again. They actually got on the train and they're making their way to her, and she starts running down, through the cars, trying to get away from them. And she gets to another car, turns around, shuts the door. She gets grabbed by the killer, like in the car. And I'm like, is Nancy Allen going to get killed right here too? Like, who are we going to follow now? I really thought Nancy Allen was about to get killed the next 30. I was like, man, this is ballsy. We killed the first one in 30 minutes. Now 30 minutes later, we're going to kill the second person we follow. Because again, the way that it happened, there's no way she's getting out of that. She's in the subway car. It's dark. The killer obviously has her, but guess who shows up? Angie Dickinson's son. And Keith, how does he save her? With
mace that he invented that looks like shaving cream that he sprays in Michael Caine's face.
He invents it with science. That's how he saved her, with science. I'm so glad that he's been doing all this science stuff.
Absolutely.
So he saves her. Thank goodness, because again, I didn't know where the movie was going to go after this, because I knew we had like 45 minutes left after that. So he saves her. now Michael Caine is going to see the other psychiatrist that Bobby is seeing right now. The other psychiatrist is the mayor from Ghostbusters.
Yeah, fucking is.
So I don't remember if I ever seen him in anything else. So it's pretty cool. He's in it a little bit more than the dude for Christmas Evil. So yeah, he's talking about the killer. But the psychiatrist is like, yeah, let's go call Bobby and talk to Bobby together. But Michael Caine's like, I'm busy. I gotta go. Just call me later or whatever. So Michael Caine leaves. Nancy Allen. Now I'm getting a little fuzzy on what happens at this, but I feel like Nancy Allen and the son figure out. Oh yeah. So the cameras, he's taking pictures of people coming out, and they sync it up the times or something. And they're like, the killer clearly left Michael Caine's office at like 9:00 last night.
But but they never checked to see the killer going inside of the office. And that's the part that always pisses me off.
Yeah. Cause again, it's not like a place where you go in one way and you go out the other. It's one entrance.
Yeah.
So you would see them going in and out. So again, but I will say, if you are thirsting for vengeance, like the son is, and you're going through the stuff, and you see the person who matches the description coming out, there's really no reason to go back and look to see when they went in. But I guess,
yeah,
maybe in the sense that, like, if you're trying to figure out exactly what time their appointment was, because again, what they want to do is bust into his office or go into his office and check the appointment book to see who this person's name, see who had the appointment with Michael Caine. And she also goes to tell the cop this. The cop can't do anything about it because he doesn't have a warrant. But basically, he says, "Hey, you're the prime suspect. If you want us to find another suspect, you got to find out who this is on your own." So he basically sends her to Michael Caine's office to get that information.
And again,
he can't bust in being the cop.
Yeah, again, but while I enjoyed this film, though it is problematic, I don't think the writers understand what a therapist is supposed to do or a police officer, because that's literally their jobs. But that's fine. Go ahead.
What's funny too is later we'll get to it. Is like, Ibn Pedibu explains his whole plan.
Yeah.
He's like, "Yep, this is why I did this because I wanted you to do that. I knew you do that." Like, blah, blah, blah. It was pretty good.
Yeah,
it's pretty funny, that whole thing where they explain everything. So the plan is, Nancy Allen's going to go and see Michael Caine under the guise of, I went through some trauma. I want to talk to a therapist about it. So she goes there, and, again, mirroring the scene with the original Final Girl that turned out to not be the final girl. She is hitting on Michael Caine. Michael Caine is very matter of fact with his answers, much like he was originally. Very cool. What I don't quite understand, though, other than the fact it becomes like Rear Window, is why do they open? Why is the window open for all of this? So she opens the window and Nancy Allen starts stripping. So the sun is outside in the pouring rain, watching with binoculars.
Well, she opens the blinds.
The blinds. Yeah, the blinds.
And she's like, "I've been hanging out with this boy. At least he needs to get one hard on from me." No, I think it's so he can see when she leaves to go to the next room. And so
go ahead.
So maybe if Michael Caine catches on to this, he can alert her or something. I don't really know. I don't.
Yeah. I kind of thought that too, but then again, it doesn't come into play. Nothing happens with that. So I did think it was weird. It was like, let me open the blinds, then I'm going to strip down to the skimpy outfit and just let him see it.
Which again, looking good. I was going to say.
Yeah, you could tell why it's Brian De Palma's wife at the time.
Yeah.
So again, I really believe this is just, again, De Palma's homage to Rear Window. That's what he's doing here. And again, it doesn't work, but he's trying to shoehorn Rear Window into this film, and that does not work for me.
I can also justify it as she wants to make sure he's there in place for whatever part of the job he was supposed to do, but I don't know what part of the job he was supposed to do. I wish they would have explained it in the explanation scene that happened shortly after this. But either way, I'm fine with it because we get to see like a half a nipple from Nancy Allen, and that's pretty cool.
Yep. And so she strips down and she basically says, I'm going to go powder my nose. And when I come back, either, you be ready for me or, this isn't going to happen or whatever. So she really just gives him a choice and she leaves. But she just goes into the other room and now she's looking through the address book, and all that. Michael Caine starts taking off his clothes. And then the son gets closer to the window because he's like, what's exactly going on? And it looks like, so Michael Caine is actually, spoiler, like I said, he is dressing as a woman. But then the son gets attacked or grabbed by the woman that looks like the early woman. And now I'm like, okay, I'm really confused. I must have not known exactly what's going on in this movie because I am super duper confused because Michael Caine is in that room and the son has just been grabbed by someone who looks just like the killer. Like, what is happening? I was super confused.
Yeah.
So Nancy Allen comes back in. Michael Caine, dressed as the woman from earlier, got the razor blade. Clearly, Michael Caine is the killer. Michael Caine goes to kill Nancy Allen. Shots ring out through the window. And it's the other woman that has shot Michael Caine. Then we cut to, like you said, the explanation scene. So we got a lot going on here. We got the mayor from Ghostbusters doing the Psycho scene, the end of Psycho.
Absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
That's 100% what he's doing. He's explaining the psyche of Michael Caine. And I love, though, when he's talking about, because when you think back at the scene, when he's talking about when Michael Caine as Dr. Caine went to see him and was explaining, how Bobby, was my patient or whatever, how now that whole scene takes a whole nother focus.
Yeah.
Because the mayor knows that this is the same person he's been seeing. And that's why he's like, hey, let's call Bobby right now. And, he's got a weird look on his face. Like, it's really cool. I like how that played out, actually.
Yeah.
Even though, again, like we said, it's copying the Psycho scene. And then NYPD Blue's explaining to Nancy Allen about how, oh, yeah, you were never a suspect. We knew you weren't the killer. I was just using you to get evidence or whatever, because we couldn't get in there and get it. And so,
he got a blonde police officer who doesn't get lines in the movie to follow Nancy Allen as well. To keep an eye on her.
Which explains who she was being followed by when I was so angry that Michael Caine was on the phone.
Yeah.
And what I thought was the killer was following Nancy Allen. So again, that worked. And again, the fact that I knew the twist was one thing, but knowing the twist made me question other things in the movie I maybe wouldn't question.
Yeah.
Not knowing the twist, because I was like, what is going on? A lot of the time. So that was pretty cool. And I thought I read that the female cop, again, that, you said doesn't have any lines. She was the stand-in for the killer in a lot of the scenes.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
That's even more so to make you, to make it, you think it's her.
I also
a lot of the times when it showed her from the back.
Yeah. I also feel that, like, the problematic aspect of this movie, now that we're near the end, is its depiction of transvesticism or transsexuality, right? But it's interesting that Mayor from Ghostbusters sort of points out that this isn't a typical case, because he characterizes Michael Caine as having two halves that are fighting for dominance within the same body, almost saying that he has like a DID issue or a schizophrenic issue that is just manifesting itself in a transvesticism sort of format, which I think distance itself from the earlier trans character that we met, you know what I mean? But still optically problematic. But that's my thought.
But even, again, much like Psycho and Norman Bates, where he was aroused and turned on, that's what made him, kill her as his mother. The same thing was happening here. The two people, the one person that Michael Caine killed, Angie Dickinson, and then he tried to kill Nancy Allen. Both of those women turned him on. Yeah. And that's what they were saying. He was turning on the male side of him, and the female side did not like that.
Yeah, and Mayor of Ghostbusters goes very much in detail. See, when a penis extends and grows, then it's like, okay, I don't need to hear about Michael Caine's penis that much, you know.
That's when Rob would say, finally, somebody's talking about stuff I can
My
understand.
language.
So, Psycho, that's the end of the movie. So you think that's the end of the movie. It's not the end of the movie. Now we're in, Michael Caine is in an insane asylum.
Directed by Joel Schumacher from Batman Forever.
Oh my gosh, I'm telling you. Yeah, because I was like, what is this? This is wild. It's something that we've not seen like this look before at all. It definitely was, again, 1980s Arkham Asylum is what, Arkham would look like. That's what it looked like. The nurse comes in to, I guess, give him medicine or something. I don't know, but Michael Caine is not knocked out. He grabs the nurse. He kills the nurse. It's pretty brutal.
Mm-hmm.
And we pan up and we just see like rows and rows of like other insane people just watching. They're not, they're not in prison or anything. They're just right there and they're hooting and hollering. And Michael Caine starts taking off her clothes because he's got clothes to put on.
And it's also a very interesting shot too, because it feels like the composition of the shot has one side occupied by the insane asylum gallery and then him undressing this very attractive woman on a bed, and it's positioned in such a way that's resemblant of all the duo shots that we had earlier, but now it's in camera and just this weird feeling. And is he trying to make a commentary on us being the insane asylum? I don't know, go ahead.
It's super weird. And to your point earlier, miss this, after the aftermath of this, Nancy Allen and the son had a conversation, and the stepdad, who completely has disappeared from this movie,
absolutely,
he's not even there. He basically, the son invites Nancy Allen to come stay with him. Don't really know why she would accept that necessarily, because she's got her own place. It's not like they're in another city or anything like that, unless, again, she's down to fuck this kid. Like, that's what's happening, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know.
And of course the kid's going to invite her. Like, what 16, 17, 18-year-old wouldn't invite her, And so now we're at their house. Michael Caine is, I guess this killer POV is following, going to the house. Nancy Allen is in the shower. And guess what? Nancy Allen has seen Psycho because she's a little leery inside the shower. She's a little worried. She thinks something's just doesn't quite feel right. So she looks and she sees, from the corner of the door, like nurse shoes, clearly, someone in a nurse outfit, the leg and the shoe or something like that. So now she's freaking out, but she doesn't scream or anything. She gets out of the shower. We see this leg for what seems like an eternity. We keep flashing back to it. It's never moving. And she's slowly like trying to find a weapon, anything. She opens the medicine cabinet and I think maybe she gets a razor blade.
She's reaching for the razor blade. Yeah, it's straight razor.
And then the killer shows up, slits her throat. And she wakes up screaming. It was just a nightmare. Just like Carrie, the way Carrie ended, with a girl waking up, screaming in the nightmare. That's the movie. Like, the son comes to check on her because she's screaming.
Yeah, and she's sleeping in his mom and stepdad's bed. The son comes to comfort her. It's unclear if he was in the bedroom earlier or if he had to run down the hall. He didn't bring any of his science with her, but she is wearing a nightgown that I imagine Rob sleeps in every night because it's like buttoned up to her chin. You know what I mean? Like,
it's probably Angie Dickinson's,
which is fucked up, which is even more fucked up.
Yeah. Psycho again.
Yeah. So, but also it does also have the Psycho element of, after Janet Leigh's character dies, it's a team up of two people that knew her or were connected to her trying to solve the thing. And we have it very similar. It's one person who found the body and it's the son trying to team up to solve everything. Again, to me, it's got all of those Psycho beats, but then it's also got a lot of the aspect of the giallo horror like genre.
Definitely.
Black gloves, razor blade, penetrated sort of kills. And I think it's one of those movies, almost like your description of it, where it's like, wait a second, that doesn't, 2 scenes later, oh, wait a second, that doesn't, oh, it makes sense now. You know what I mean? That keeps happening. Like the mental asylum, it's the way they depict it, super fucking offensive to anybody with mental health problems, but then also doesn't fit within the rest of the tone of the movie until you realize it's just a dream. And then it sort of excuses it all. And I think this movie does that a lot. Still problematic, still Michael Caine, but yeah, that's my thought.
But I do appreciate that. The fact that, again, I've seen a ton of movies, a ton of horror movies, 80s horror. And this one, even though, again, that I knew the twist, it still kept me on my toes because it was doing things that I was not expecting.
Yeah.
And then turned around and explained it a couple, like you said, a couple of scenes later, it makes total sense. So I appreciate it, in that regard. Again, my letterbox review for this problematic movie is 3 out of 5.
Oh, that's great. Mine's a 3.5.
Okay.
I do feel, to me, it is De Palma in a way that I don't think he had before or since said, I can show you I can make a fucking movie. And the way he masters the camera going from these sweeping movements to gritty and intimate. And also, like, I think the movie gets a lot of flack for being misogynistic, and rightfully so. But then I think there is an element that captures an element of female sexuality in an interesting way. The fact that I think that opening scene thematically is incredible. Like her going from her fantasy, which is a specific thing, to being rocked into somebody else's that is not what she wanted, right? And that journey that Angie Dickinson goes on at the beginning, that's a complicated movie in of itself. Like, and I think it's very forward and very, progressive in a way. Especially that she's not depicted as the bad guy, except for by NYPD and the killer,
Right. And, I kind of, again, I like where this movie went, but I kind of wanted to see the movie where she leaves having slept with a guy that has a venereal disease.
Yeah.
And see, like, because again, we're seeing that, but that it does nothing to forward the film. Granted, it makes her leave, but she was leaving anyway. So it doesn't do anything other than it adds insult to injury almost. It's just another thing against her. Before we kill her, we're going to bring her even lower.
But I think it's also very similar to the Psycho idea of this character's story could be its own book until it gets sideswiped by something else.
Right.
And so the progression of that had no way to anticipate the serial killer coming into play. And I think that makes it, Angie Dickinson's character is a fully fledged character even before Michael Caine enters it. And even like, I think Nancy Allen's is fully fledged as well, maybe not as nuanced as Angie Dickinson's. She does have that. She wants to invest in the stock market really bad.
She's a stockbroker.
Yeah.
I do like too, though. I never got this feeling though that really Dennis Franz or anyone in the film ever looked down at her for being a prostitute.
I do at the beginning when Franz is like pushing her when we first reveal that she's a prostitute, but then by the end he's like, yeah, buddy, pal. Like in the explanation scene, everything's different. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so I think it's such an interesting ride of a film that I think it does, it's great that you sort of cited Joker, because where I feel that the Joker movie by Todd Phillips tries to replicate some stuff from Taxi Driver and kind of falls short, I don't feel this exceeds Psycho, but it achieves what Psycho was trying to achieve in a different way and winds up equilateral to it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I do think, again, this is De Palma's Psycho, but it is different enough that it's not like, oh my gosh, he just ripped off Psycho and he failed miserably. That's not what happened here. No. He changed enough of it. He took a lot of the elements from Psycho. And to me, it worked. This film worked.
Yeah. Do you think it could be made today? I mean, it is kind of problematic, but I don't think it's too problematic where you couldn't find a way to do it.
No, but I do think there'd probably be a lot more trans characters in the film.
Yeah.
And it could even be that the son in this case, if they remade it, was also trans.
That's great.
So that the hero is also one of the heroes is also, trans. So I feel like that's how you would, make that today.
Yeah.
So I think you can again, cleaning up some of that stuff. But speaking of, if it was made today, so for recasting this movie,
Okay.
the three leads. So I would have Michael Caine's character, Edward Norton.
Oof.
Nancy Allen's character would be Scarlett Johansson.
Oh, okay.
And Angie Dickinson would be Kate Blanchett.
Oh, okay. That's a high end. That's a high end cast. I think for me, I would do. I have two castings for the Michael Caine character. My first one would be James McAvoy. I think he could really knock it out of the park. But I also feel that might be too similar to some of his like Split stuff.
Right. Would you see it coming? If the movie's never been made before and you're watching it from scratch,
Yeah.
Would you be like, is he doing his Split character?
Yeah.
That's gotcha.
And then my other casting would be Mason Alexander Park from The Sandman, who played Desire as the Michael Caine character. So that way we're getting actual trans representation into that. And then for my Nancy Allen character, I would pick Brittany Snow. I think would do really great in that part. And I think it's an interesting pick that's probably not obvious, but I think Brittany Snow can capture that likability, but also that sexuality. And then
like X.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I forgot to cast the Angie Dickinson character, so I'm going to do it right now. And I think I would cast the Angie Dickinson character as Boyd Holbrook and cross-gender it. So it's a male figure at the beginning, and that way maybe we can also soften some more of this discussion. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yep.
So that's what I would do. Fuck yeah.
Well, so that is Psycho. I mean, Dress to Kill.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
One more time, for you drinkers out there, Michael Caine.
Michael Caine. I also like the fact that the poster looks like a James Bond movie, like a really good James Bond movie, but then it's not a James Bond movie at all. And are those supposed to be Michael Caine's legs? Huh. I wonder. What is our next movie that we're going to be looking at?
Our next up film is we're going back to the first movie in the In Search of Darkness, because it will be streaming here in a couple of days. The Fog. John Carpenter. The Fog.
Awesome. I can't wait. So Chad, in the meantime, where can people find you?
On Twitter, NQC Podcast, Instagram, NQC Podcast.
Awesome. And if you want to find me, I will be somewhere in the not quite darkness. Michael Caine.
Peace.